On a winter morning in the outskirts of Los Angeles, when the air bit hard enough to sting and the sky hung low and gray, billionaire Ethan Cross stepped out of his black sedan. The door closed with the soft, expensive thunk of German engineering. He wore a charcoal coat that cost more than most people made in a month, tailored so perfectly it might have been sewn onto his body. His shoes were Italian leather, polished to a mirror shine that reflected the pale winter Sunday. Around him, construction workers in orange vests and hard hats stood waiting for orders, their breath forming small clouds in the frigid air. This was his land. His project, another overpass to rise where an old bridge now sagged. Another piece of infrastructure to bear his company's name. But as Ethan walked toward the site manager, a clipboard-wielding man already launching into budget reports, something caught his eye beneath the old bridge. A splash of color against gray concrete, movement where there should have been none. A flicker of life, in a place meant to be abandoned. He stopped mid-step. Below, in the shadow of rusted beams and graffiti-scarred pillars, a woman sat cross-legged on the frozen ground. Her jacket was navy blue, too thin for the weather, patched in 3 places with silver duct tape that caught the light. Her jeans were frayed at the knees. Her hair, dark brown and tangled, was pulled back with a rubber band. Beside her, a little girl, no older than 6 or 7, hunched over a piece of flattened cardboard box, the kind that once held a television or a microwave. The woman held a chunk of charcoal in her right hand, the kind used for art, writing letters in careful, deliberate strokes. The girl's lips moved silently, sounding out words, her small finger tracing each letter. Ethan stood 20 feet above them on the embankment, watching. The woman smiled when the girl got a word right. The girl clapped her small hands together, and the sound echoed faintly under the concrete arches of the bridge. Around them lay their entire world, spread out on a blue plastic tarp. A sleeping bag rolled tight and secured with bungee cords. A garbage bag stuffed with clothing. 2 plastic water bottles. A stack of books wrapped in another garbage bag to keep them dry, and a small backpack with a cartoon character on it, faded from sun and time. The woman was teaching her daughter to read, on a piece of cardboard, under a bridge, in the cold. While morning commuters rushed overhead, none of them knowing or caring what happened in the shadows below, Ethan felt something crack open in his chest. A memory he had buried for 30 years clawed its way to the surface, sharp and unwelcome. His own mother, her hands raw and red from cleaning other people's houses, sitting with him at a scratched kitchen table lit by a single bare bulb, teaching him words from torn newspaper pages. Her voice had been soft, patient, musical. Her fingers had smelled like lemon cleaner. She had died when he was 9, her heart giving out while she scrubbed someone's bathroom floor. She had been 32 years old. He had not thought of her in years. Had trained himself not to. Ethan stood there longer than he intended. Until his assistant called his name twice, the second time, with an edge of concern. When he finally turned away, his jaw was tight, a muscle twitching beneath the skin. He did not speak for the rest of the meeting. When the site manager asked him a question about budget allocation, Ethan stared at him for 3 full seconds before answering. That night, lying in his penthouse with floor-to-ceiling windows, overlooking a city of 10 million lights, Ethan could not sleep. He kept seeing the woman's hands, the careful way she formed each letter, making sure they were clear, readable, perfect. The pride in the little girl's eyes when she sounded out a whole word by herself. The way the woman had kissed the top of her daughter's head, casual and automatic. The way people breathe. He had built an empire. 3,000 employees. Properties in 15 states. His name on buildings and awards and magazine covers. He had money, power, respect, but he could not remember the last time he had looked at another human being the way that woman looked at her daughter. He could not remember the last time anyone had looked at him that way either. The woman's name was Lila Monroe. 34 years old, though the last 2 years had aged her in ways that did not show in mirrors. Once a third-grade teacher at an elementary school in Pasadena, the kind of teacher children remembered their whole lives. She had loved her job with a fierceness that surprised even her. Loved the smell of crayons and glue and construction paper. Loved the way children's faces lit up when a story clicked. When a math problem suddenly made sense. When they realized they could do something they thought they could not. Then the pandemic came. Schools closed, reopened, closed again. When they finally reopened for good, the budgets had been slashed. Class sizes doubled. Positions were eliminated. Lila was let go on a Tuesday in April. Her principal apologizing with tears in his eyes, telling her it was not about her performance, it was just numbers, just money, just the way things were now. She applied everywhere. Sent out 147 resumes. Heard back from 12. Got 3 interviews. Received 0 offers. People wanted younger teachers, cheaper teachers, teachers who had not had a gap in their employment. Her husband, Marcus, worked construction. They scraped by. Barely. Their savings evaporated. Then one rainy evening in November, Marcus's truck hydroplaned on the freeway doing 65. He hit a concrete barrier. The impact was instant. He died before the ambulance arrived. He had been 36 years old. Maya had just turned 5. Lila lost the apartment 3 months later. After maxing out 2 credit cards and borrowing money from every friend who would lend it, she and Maya moved into her car, a 15-year-old Honda with a broken heater. They parked in different neighborhoods each night, moving before anyone could call the police. They washed in gas station bathrooms. They ate at soup kitchens and food banks. Lila told Maya they were on an adventure, camping under the stars. When the car was towed for unpaid parking tickets, they moved to the bridge. That was 8 months ago. Every morning, Lila woke Maya before dawn, when the sky was still dark and the city was quiet. They washed their faces with bottled water, careful not to waste a drop. Lila combed Maya's hair with a pink plastic comb she had found in a gas station bathroom, working out the tangles gently, singing softly while she did it. She made sure Maya's clothes were as clean as possible, though they had only 2 outfits each. She used wet wipes to scrub Maya's face and hands until they were spotless. She wanted her daughter to look cared for, to look loved, to look like she mattered. Then they walked to the public library when it opened at 9. It was 2 miles away. They walked slowly, stopping to rest when Maya got tired. Inside the library, it was warm. They stayed until it closed at 6. In between, Lila taught Maya everything she could. Math with bottle caps lined up on the table. Spelling with scraps of paper she kept in her pockets. History from library books they were not allowed to check out because they had no address, no proof of residence, no way to prove they existed in the system. Lila read to Maya for hours. Chapter books, picture books, books about animals and space, and brave girls who saved the world. Maya sat curled against her mother's side, listening, her eyes wide. Sometimes other library patrons stared. Sometimes the librarians looked at them with pity. Lila ignored them all. This was their school. This was their home. For 8 hours a day, Maya never complained. Not once. She was 6 years old. But she understood more than any 6-year-old should. She understood that Mama cried silently at night, turned away so Maya would not see, her shoulders shaking. She understood that some days, Mama gave her the only sandwich they had, and said she was not hungry, that she had already eaten, even though Maya had been with her all day and knew it was a lie. She understood that the world had forgotten them, or maybe had never noticed them in the first place. But Maya also understood that Mama loved her. That was the one thing that never changed, never wavered, never ran out. At night, under the bridge, Lila wrapped Maya in the sleeping bag and told her stories. Stories about princesses who did not need rescuing because they rescued themselves. Stories about girls who became scientists and artists and explorers, who traveled to distant planets and painted murals on the sides of buildings and discovered cures for diseases. Stories where the ending was always good, always hopeful, always full of light. Maya would fall asleep with her head on Lila's lap, her breath evening out. her small hand clutching the edge of Lila's jacket, and Lila would stay awake for hours, listening to the cars rumble overhead, metal on concrete, a constant rhythm that never stopped. She would count the stars she could see through the gaps in the bridge. She would wonder how much longer she could keep her daughter safe, how much longer she could pretend that everything would be okay. During the day, she collected bottles and cans, walking miles with a garbage bag over her shoulder, checking every trash can, every alley, every park. She turned them in for pennies at the recycling center, the man behind the counter barely looking at her as he counted out her money. $3. $5. Once, on a very good day, $8.50. She stood outside grocery stores with a cardboard sign that read, in careful block letters, "Teacher, Mother, trying. Anything helps. God bless." Some people gave her $1, dropping it into the coffee can at her feet without making eye contact. Some gave her nothing but a look of disgust, their lips curling. One woman spat at her feet and told her to get a job, to stop being a drain on society. A teenage boy threw a half-eaten burger at her and laughed. Lila never responded. She just smiled and said thank you to the ones who helped. She had learned that anger was a luxury she could not afford. That pride was something she had to swallow every single day just to survive. Maya drew pictures on scraps of paper she found, or that Lila brought home from the library. Pictures of houses with smoke coming from chimneys. Pictures of tables piled high with food. Pictures of her and Mama holding hands under a big tree with a tire swing. She hid them in the lining of the sleeping bag, tucked carefully between the fabric layers. Her secret gallery of dreams she did not want to lose. On good days, they had enough money for 2 meals. A breakfast burrito from a food truck, split down the middle. A pizza slice for dinner, 1 piece for each of them. On bad days, they had 1 meal, and Lila made sure Maya ate it all. On the worst days, the days when Lila only made $2 and the food bank was closed, Lila told Maya they were fasting like monks in the mountains, and that it made them stronger, more focused, more connected to the universe. Maya believed her. Children always do. Ethan Cross had not always been cold. Once, a long time ago, he had been a boy who cried when his mother died, a boy who screamed at the funeral, who tried to climb into the casket because he did not understand why she would not wake up, a boy who was sent to live with his father's brother, a man named Richard who lived in a mansion in Beverly Hills and measured worth in dollars and saw compassion as weakness, as something that got in the way of success. Richard Cross was a venture capitalist who had made his fortune destroying companies and selling them for parts. He was not cruel, exactly. He was just empty. He taught Ethan that the world was divided into winners and losers, sharks and prey, people who mattered and people who did not. He taught him that softness was a liability, that caring too much would ruin you. Ethan learned quickly. He had to. He buried his grief so deep, he forgot where he had put it. He built walls around his heart, thick and high, and told himself they were for protection. He excelled in school because Richard rewarded success with approval and punished failure with silence. He went to Stanford, then Harvard Business School. He graduated top of his class. He was 22 years old and already hard as stone. By 25, he had his first million, made by flipping properties in foreclosure. By 30, his first billion, made by buying struggling companies, gutting them, and reselling them for profit. He built skyscrapers and shopping centers and luxury condos that no one who actually lived in the neighborhoods could afford. People called him ruthless, cold, a shark in a suit. He called himself realistic. The world, he believed, was simply the way it was. He had just chosen to be on the winning side. His penthouse was all glass and steel and sharp edges, modern art on the walls, paintings that cost 6 figures and meant nothing to him. A kitchen with marble countertops and appliances he never used, a bed the size of a small car that he rarely slept in. He worked 16 hours a day, sometimes 18, sometimes 20. He had no wife, no children, no close friends. He had employees who feared him, and business partners who respected him, and people who wanted things from him. Always wanting, always asking, hands out, eyes calculating. He did not mind. He told himself he preferred it this way. Relationships were messy. They required vulnerability. They could be used against you. Better to be alone and powerful than connected and weak. But the truth he never admitted even to himself in the dark hours before dawn, was that he was lonely. The kind of lonely that no amount of money could fix, no amount of success could fill. The kind that sat in his chest like a stone, cold and heavy. A weight he had learned to carry without thinking about it. When he saw Lila and Maya under the bridge, something cracked. Not broke, but cracked. Just enough to let a sliver of light through, painful and bright, and impossible to ignore. He tried to ignore it anyway. For 2 days, he buried himself in work. Conference calls with Tokyo and London. Contracts that needed reviewing. Meetings with architects and engineers and lawyers. But every night, lying in his empty penthouse with the city glowing below him, he saw them. The woman's careful hands forming letters. The little girl's smile, gap-toothed and radiant. The way they looked at each other, like they were the only 2 people in the world who mattered. On the 3rd day, he drove back to the bridge. He parked a block away and walked, his hands in his coat pockets, his breath visible in the cold. He did not know what he was looking for. Closure. Maybe. Proof that they were fine. That he had imagined the desperation. That they had somewhere else to go. Proof that he could forget about them and go back to his life. But they were still there. The woman was reading aloud from a library book. Something about a mouse and a motorcycle. Her voice animated. Doing different voices for different characters. Her daughter was curled against her side, giggling. They were wrapped together in the sleeping bag, their breath forming clouds that mingled and rose. Ethan stood in the shadows of a closed storefront across the street, watching. He felt like an intruder. Like he was witnessing something sacred. Something private. Something that was not meant for him. Then the little girl looked up. Looked right at him, as if she could sense him there. Their eyes met across the distance. Hers were dark and bright and curious. His were startled, caught. Ethan turned and walked away quickly, his heart pounding in a way that made no sense. But he did not go far. He went to a grocery store 3 blocks away, the kind that stayed open late, fluorescent lights buzzing overhead. He walked the aisles slowly, putting things in a cart without really thinking. Bread, peanut butter, apples, granola bars, juice boxes, a package of thick socks, a blanket still in its plastic wrapper. He paid with cash. He carried the bags back to his car. Then he carried them to the bridge, moving quietly, staying in the shadows. He left them 20 feet from where Lila and Maya slept, hidden behind a concrete pillar where they would find them, but where he would not be seen. He did not leave a note. He did not wait to be thanked. He just left, walking quickly back to his car, his hands shaking for reasons he did not understand. The next morning, Lila found the bags. She saw them as soon as she woke. 2 grocery bags sitting there, like they had appeared by magic. Inside, bread and peanut butter, enough for a week of sandwiches. 6 apples, red and shiny, and perfect. A box of granola bars. A pack of juice boxes with straws attached. A package of socks, thick and warm and brand new. And a blanket, navy blue and fleece, still in its wrapper, the kind that cost $30 at a department store. Lila looked around wildly, searching for whoever had left them. The street was empty. The morning was quiet. She knelt beside Maya, who was still asleep, and opened the package of socks. They were the right size, child size small. Whoever left them had noticed, had paid attention. She held the blanket to her chest and cried, silent tears running down her face, her shoulders shaking. Maya woke up and asked what was wrong. And Lila said nothing was wrong. Everything was right. Someone kind had helped them. Maya asked if it was an angel. Lila said maybe. Maybe it was. Ethan returned the next week. And the week after that, he never approached them. Never spoke. He came at different times, different days, always careful, always quiet. He left things, small things that made a difference. A flashlight with batteries, a tarp for when it rained. A winter coat in Maya's size, purple with pink flowers, the kind a child would choose for herself. Children's books, paperbacks with worn covers from thrift stores, a sketch pad and colored pencils, a small radio so they could listen to music. Lila began leaving notes, written on notebook paper in neat teacher's handwriting, held down by rocks so they would not blow away. Thank you, whoever you are. God bless you. You are saving us. Please know you are making a difference. Ethan never responded. But he read every note. He kept them in his glove compartment, folded carefully. He did not understand why. He only knew that for the first time in years, he felt something other than emptiness. He felt purpose. He felt connected to something larger than himself. Maya drew a picture of a man in a cape flying through the sky, carrying bags of food. She colored it carefully, using every color in the box. She left it tucked under a rock with a note in her careful 6-year-old handwriting. Thank you, secret hero. Love, Maya. Lila found it and smiled, tears in her eyes. She added her own note beneath it. Heroes don't always wear capes. Sometimes they just have kind hearts and generous souls. Thank you for seeing us when the world looks away. Ethan found the drawing on a Thursday evening. He stood under the bridge, holding it carefully, staring at it for a long time. The man in the cape had a big smile and outstretched arms. He was labeled Secret Hero in crooked letters. Stars surrounded him. No one had ever called Ethan a hero. No one had ever drawn his picture, even as an imagined figure. No one had ever thanked him like this, without wanting anything in return, without an agenda. He folded it carefully and put it in his wallet, behind his driver's license, where he would see it every day. He told himself he was just helping. Just doing a good deed. Nothing more than any decent person would do. But late at night, when he could not sleep and the city lights blurred together below him, he admitted the truth to himself in the darkness. He was not saving them. They were saving him. They were teaching him how to be human again, how to care, how to feel something other than the cold calculation of profit and loss. The storm came on a Thursday in February, arriving with dramatic speed. Weather reports called it the worst in a decade, a system that had stalled over the Pacific and then slammed into the coast all at once. Rain fell in sheets, relentless and cold, turning streets into rivers. The river that ran beneath the old bridge, usually a trickle, swelled within hours. Lila saw the water rising and knew immediately they had to leave. She had been watching the weather all week on the small radio Ethan had left them. And she had prepared as best she could, putting their most important things in plastic bags, ready to grab and go. But the current moved faster than she expected. It roared under the bridge, brown and furious, carrying tree branches and trash cans and chunks of concrete. Within minutes, it was at their feet, then at their ankles. "Mama!" Maya screamed as the sleeping bag was torn from Lila's hands, swept into the rushing water like it weighed nothing. Lila grabbed Maya and climbed onto a concrete ledge, a narrow lip that ran along the side of the bridge support. She pressed her back against the concrete, holding her daughter against her chest with both arms, Maya's legs wrapped around her waist. The water rose higher, higher. It was at Lila's knees now, then her thighs, cold enough to steal her breath. Maya was crying, her face buried in Lila's neck. Lila prayed. She had not prayed in months, had lost her faith somewhere along the way. But now she did. She prayed that if only one of them could survive. Let it be Maya. Let her daughter live. Let her have a chance at life. Let someone find her and take care of her and give her everything she deserved. A news helicopter circled overhead, its blades thumping the air, the sound almost drowned out by the roar of water. A reporter's voice crackled through a megaphone, telling them to hold on, that help was coming, just hold on. But the water was so loud, so cold. Lila's legs were going numb. Her grip on Maya was slipping. Ethan saw the broadcast on his office television. He had the news on mute in the background while he worked, the way he always did. But something made him look up. The screen showed a woman clinging to a concrete ledge, a child in her arms, water swirling around them. The banner read, "Homeless woman and daughter, trapped by floodwaters under bridge." He knew immediately who it was. He did not think, did not calculate, did not weigh the risks. He just ran. He ran through his office, past his secretary who called after him, down the stairs because the elevator was too slow, out into the street. He drove through red lights, his hand on the horn, swerving around traffic. When traffic stopped completely, gridlocked, he abandoned his car in the middle of the intersection and ran the last 6 blocks in his $1,000 shoes and his tailored suit, his tie whipping behind him, his coat flying open. By the time he reached the bridge, fire trucks and police cars lined the street, their lights flashing red and blue. Rescue workers were setting up a ladder, shouting to each other over the noise of water and sirens. Too slow. The whole process was too slow. The water was rising too fast. Ethan pushed through the crowd. Someone grabbed his arm. He shoved them off. He climbed onto the bridge railing, feeling it shake under his weight. Someone shouted at him to get down. He jumped. The water hit him like a fist, knocking the air from his lungs. It was so cold it felt like knives. He surfaced, gasping, choking, and swam toward them. The current fought him. He fought back. His arms burned. His lungs screamed. But he kept going. Lila saw him coming. Her eyes went wide with shock and something like horror. She did not recognize him. She only saw a man in a suit fighting the current to reach them. And she thought he was insane. He was going to die. Ethan grabbed the ledge, his fingers scraping concrete, and pulled himself up beside them. Water streamed from his hair into his eyes. He took Maya first, pulling her from Lila's arms, holding her tight against his chest with one arm. Then he reached for Lila with his free hand. "Take her," Lila said, her voice raw. "Just take her, please." "I'm taking both of you," Ethan said. His voice was steady. Final. A rescue worker on the bridge above threw a rope. It fell short. They threw it again. This time Ethan caught it. He tied it around Lila's waist with shaking hands, then around his own, then wrapped both arms around Maya, protecting her head. "Hold on," he said to Lila. She nodded. The firefighters pulled. The rope went taut. The 3 of them were dragged through the water, tumbling, gasping, swallowing water, until hands reached down and lifted them onto solid ground. Paramedics wrapped them in silver emergency blankets. Cameras flashed. Reporters shouted questions, pushing forward with microphones extended. Ethan ignored them all. He sat beside Lila and Maya on the wet pavement, shivering violently, his hand on Maya's small back as she coughed up river water, her whole body convulsing. Lila looked at him. Really looked. Her eyes focusing for the first time, seeing him. Recognition flickered in her face. The man who brought food. The man who left blankets. The secret hero. Her lips moved, forming 2 words. "Thank you." Ethan nodded. He could not speak. If he spoke, he would break. And he could not break, not here, not now, not with cameras watching. At the hospital, they were treated for hypothermia and minor injuries. Maya had swallowed water, but her lungs were clear. Lila had bruises up and down her legs and a deep cut on her hand from the concrete. Ethan was fine, physically at least, though his expensive suit was ruined and his phone had died in the water. They were released after 4 hours. Ethan made a phone call from the hospital payphone. Within an hour, a hotel suite was arranged. The Marriott downtown, 2 bedrooms, clean clothes delivered. food brought up from room service. Lila tried to refuse, standing in the hospital lobby in borrowed scrubs, her hair still damp, Maya asleep in her arms. "We can't accept this," she said. "We don't even know who you are." "My name is Ethan," he said. "And you don't have to accept anything. But your daughter needs rest. And so do you." Maya was already asleep, her head on Lila's shoulder, her thumb in her mouth the way she used to do when she was younger. Lila looked at her, then back at Ethan. She nodded. Just once. Ethan left before she could ask anything else, but he did not go far. He sat in his car in the parking lot, his head against the steering wheel, his wet clothes soaking the leather seats. And for the first time since his mother died when he was 9 years old, he cried. He cried for the little boy he had been, for the man he had become, for the woman and child who had reminded him that there was more to life than money and power. He cried until he had nothing left, until his chest ached and his eyes burned and the sun had set outside the windshield. Then he dried his face, started the car, and drove home to his empty penthouse. But this time, the emptiness felt different. This time, it felt like something that could be filled.